Hello, welcome to my another session. In this session, I am discussing about the formation of extraembryonic membrane. The formation of extraembryonic membrane which occurs simultaneously at the time of process of gastrulation. By the morphogenetic movement of blastomeres, the bilaminar embryonic disc which transformed into trilaminar embryonic disc. This process is known as the gastrulation, which I have already discussed in my last video. So here the process of gastrulation I will omit here, but here I will focus only about the formation of extraembryonic membranes around the fetus, around the embryo. So what are the extraembryonic membranes? Actually, there are four membranes are present around the fetus or developed around the fetus, which provide the nutrition and which also provide the protection to fetus to developing embryo. And these are known as the chorion, amnion, allantois, yolk sac. Let's start the formation of extraembryonic membrane. The formation of extraembryonic membrane which starts by the end of second week of fertilization and by the beginning of third week of fertilization. During these weeks, what actually happens? Suppose that at the end of second week of fertilization, this is the implanted blastocyst. This is the implanted blastocyst. This implanted blastocyst, it has two layers of cells. The outer layer is known as the trophoblast, and the inner mass of cell which is known as the embryoblast. So the inner mass of cells, it is known as the embryoblast. This is known as embryoblast. So the implanted blastocyst, this is the blastocyst. The implanted blastocyst, it has two types of cells. The outer is the trophoblast and the embryoblast. Inner mass of cell is known as the embryoblast. So what happened at the beginning? The trophoblast cells which divide and redivide, and these cells form two types of cells. Suppose that this is the implanted blastocyst. The trophoblast which start to divide, which start to form the multinucleated cells at outer side. These are the multinucleated cells. Suppose that this form the like a membrane like structure. This is the multinucleated cells. So this is the multinucleated cells are present, and which forms the membrane or the layer like structure. This is known as the syncytial trophoblast. So the trophoblast cells which divide at outer side, which forms the multinucleated cells. The multinucleated cells are known as the syncytium and the sinusotic condition. That's why the membrane or the layers or the cell mass of cells at the outside of the blastocyst, which is formed by the division of the trophoblast, these are known as the syncytial trophoblast. This is known as the syncytial trophoblast. And inner cells which are uninucleated cell, and they retain the boundaries inner side, and which is known as the cytotrophoblast. Now the trophoblast is known as cytotrophoblast. This is known as cytotrophoblast. The inner mass of cells at the beginning which present in a clump or the mass of cells which present togetherly and in a bundle. But these cells now start to extend or start to expand. So these cells now which arranged in two layers, the outer is known as the epiblast. The outer is known as the epiblast, which is columnar in shape, and the inner which is cuboidal in shape, these are known as hypoblast. So the embryoblast cells, they are arranged in two layers. The outer layer which become the columnar in structure, which is known as epiblast, and the inner which is known as hypoblast. So this is the hypoblast layer or the hypoblast cell. Then these cells, so gradually the blastocyst which gradually grow in size by the absorbing of the secretion from the endometrial wall of uterus. These cells now divide and extend, and which forms the blastocyst which is growing inside the endometrial wall of the uterus. So this is the blastocyst. Now the outer cells, these are the cytotrophoblast. So outer cells, now these are known as the cytotrophoblast, and the outer cells, these are the multinucleated cells. These are known as the syncytiotropoblast. This is the syncytiotropoblast cells. The stretching of epiblast cells taking place. By the stretching of epiblast cell, a space is appeared here. Suppose that this is the epiblast cell. These are the columnar shaped cells. Below the epiblast, there is the hypoblast. So this is the cuboidal shaped of cell. This is the hypoblast. Here a space is appeared by the stretching of epiblast cell. So upper is the epiblast, lower is the hypoblast. So here a space appear in between the cytotrophoblast and the inner epiblast. Now this space is known as amniotic space. This space is known as amniotic space or cavity. By the division of cytotrophoblast, a layer of cells developed or appeared at inner side of the cytotrophoblast, and these cells are known as the amniogenic cells. So by the division of cytotrophoblast, inner side another layer of cells developed and which line the roof of the amniotic cavity, and these cells are known as amniogenic cells. These are known as amniogenic cells. Why these are known as amniogenic cell? These amniogenic cell, it is known as amniogenic cells because amnion which is developed from the embryogenic cell. So what happened? By the end of the second week of the fertilization or by the beginning of the third week of fertilization, there is the some development occurs. The inner mass of cell or the embryoblast cells, they arranged in two layers, epiblast and the hypoblast, and by the stretching of the epiblast, a space is appeared in between the upper or the dorsal side cytotrophoblast and the inner epiblast. The cavity is known as the amniotic cavity, and the roof of the cell or the roof is lined by the cells produced by the division of the cytotrophoblast. These are known as the amniogenic cell. What happened next? So this epiblast and hypoblast, which is known as the bilaminar disc or the embryonic disc. This is known as the bilaminar or embryonic disc. Here I omit this because this bilaminar disc or the embryonic disc, which developed into proper embryo by the process of gastrulation and the process of organogenesis. But the process of gastrulation I have already discussed in my last video, so I omit here this process. I will discuss only what are the events taking place around this bilaminar disc. So what happened next? By the development, by the formation of bilaminar disc, what happened next? The next event is that the division of hypoblast cells taking place. So this is the blastocyst, implanted blastocyst. Now blastocyst present. Now blastocyst present inside the endometrial wall of the uterus. This is the syncytial trophoblast. Now the division of syncytial trophoblast cells, which forms a layer around the trophoblast or around the blastocyst. Now the whole blastocyst, which is covered by syncytial trophoblast. So this is the syncytial trophoblast. This is the syncytial trophoblast around the blastocyst, which is known as the syncytial trophoblast inside the endometrial wall of the uterus. Next process, by the division of hypoblast cells. By the division of hypoblast cell, this is the bilaminar disc here. This is the bilaminar disc. This is the bilaminar disc. Upper dorsal is the epiblast. Lower, this is the hypoblast cells. So these are the cuboidal in shape. These are the hypoblast cells. By the division of hypoblast cell, the movement of hypoblast cell taking place like this. So by the division of cells and the movement of cells, which form or which aid the membrane, which forms the membrane, and this membrane is known as the exocoelomic membrane, which forms the membrane is known as exocoelomic membrane. Now this is known as the exocoelomic membrane. So this is the exocoelomic membrane. This is the exocoelomic membrane. It also known as the endoderm. So this is known as endoderm, which forms the layer. That's why it is known as the endoderm, or it known as extraembryonic endodermal cells. So by the division of cells of hypoblast, they form a layer which is known as the exocoelomic membrane, or which is known as the endoderm, and it also known as the extraembryonic endodermal cell. So this is known as the extraembryonic endodermal, means it is the additional endodermal cells. These cell does not take part the endoderm of embryo. That's why this is known as the extraembryonic endodermal cells. Such exocoelomic membrane, or the exocoelomic membrane which enclose the inner space of blastocell. So this is the blastocell, this is the blastocell, this is the blastocell. Actually this is the blastocell. This is also blastocell, this is also blastocell. Now this inner region of the blastocell, which is enclosed by the exocoelomic membrane, and this cavity is known as the exocoelomic cavity. This is known as exocoelomic cavity, and which also known as primary yolk sac. This is known as primary yolk sac, or it is known as the primitive yolk sac. It is known as primitive yolk sac. Means from this sac, the yolk sac is developed. That's why it is known as the primitive yolk sac, or primary yolk sac, or exocoelomic cavity. And below, that is the amniogenic cell. So this is the amniogenic cell. So please observe here, this is the bilaminar disc. So the bilaminar disc which present in between two cavity. The upper is the amniotic cavity and below is the exocoelomic cavity. Then what happened next? The growing of blastocell continue as such inside the wall of the uterus by the absorbing of secretion from the endometrial wall. The syncytial cell, come to the syncytial cell. So this is the cytotrophoblast. This is the cytotrophoblast. Actually this is the trophoblast, but this is known as the cytotrophoblast after the formation of syncytotrophoblast. So the division or the formation of cytotrophoblast. This is the cytotrophoblast which grow more quicker and which forms a membrane around the blastocyst. A space is appeared in the syncytotrophoblast, and these are known as the lacunae. So these are known as the lacunae. So these are known as lacuna. Plural is lacunae. So these lacuna interconnected to each other. After the formation of smaller lacunae, these are connected to each other. The first thing is that the development of syncytotrophoblast which grow quicker and quicker and which expand around the blastocyst. And there is the formation or the appearance of small spaces which is known as the lacuna and plural lacunae. And these smaller lacuna which connected to each other and they form a network like structure which is known as the lacunar network. Now this is known as the lacunar network which forms the lacunar network. So lacuna which forms lacunar network. what happened next? So this is the endometrial wall around the syncytiotrophoblast. This is the syncytiotrophoblast. So around the syncytiotrophoblast, this is the maternal endometrium. So the capillary is developed. Suppose that the uterine endometrium, which is the sinusoid. This is the space, that is the blood. This is the blood is here. This is known as the sinusoid. This is known as sinusoid. And these are the lacunar network. So these are the lacunar network. The blood capillaries appear and connect the sinusoid of maternal uterus to the lacunar network. These are the blood capillaries. These are the blood capillaries. So what happened actually? During the growing of syncytiotrophoblast, there is the appearance of lacuna, smaller lacuna. Then these smaller lacuna interconnected to each other, which forms lacunar network. Then after the formation of lacunar network, a blood capillaries is appeared or developed, and which connect the sinusoid of endometrial wall to lacunar network. So the blood supply is established from the sinusoid, from the maternal tissue to the syncytiotrophoblast. So there is the establishment of utero-placental circulation. So through this circulation, this developing embryo, which get nutrition, oxygen, and through which it can also exit or remove the waste matter also. Up to this, the event of syncytiotrophoblast over here. Now the syncytiotrophoblast as well as the cytotrophoblast, which grow quicker than the bilaminar disc. So what happened? So this is the bilaminar disc, and this is the lower portion or the ventral portion of the bilaminar disc. I omit this portion, the event of this portion. This is the bilaminar disc. So here we have only two cavities. The dorsal is the amniotic cavity, and lower is the exocoelomic cavity. And a new space is appeared in between. This cavity is known as the exocoelomic cavity. So a cavity appeared in between the outer region of exocoelomic membrane, and the cytotrophoblast, and the inner surface of cytotrophoblast. I am repeating again, the growth of syncytiotrophoblast and the growth of cytotrophoblast is quicker than the embryonic disc. So what happened? The cytotrophoblast and the syncytiotrophoblast, which grew quicker and quicker, that's why a space is appeared from the inner side of the cytotrophoblast and the outer surface of the exocoelomic membrane. The cavity is known as chorionic cavity. Chorionic cavity, because in future it develops into chorion. And the wall, this is the wall of cytotrophoblast. This is the cytotrophoblast, and such cytotrophoblast in future which develop into chorion. The chorionic cavity there is a cell appeared in the cavity, in the chorionic cavity. The cells are appeared by the division of the cytotrophoblast, and now which forms the mesoderm, and these mesoderms is known as the extraembryonic mesoderm. This is known as the extraembryonic mesoderm. This is known as extraembryonic mesoderm. This is known as extraembryonic mesoderm. It means this is the additional mesoderm. They have no role for the formation of mesoderm of embryo proper. So they have no role of the formation of mesoderm of embryo or the fetus. That's why it is known as the extraembryonic mesoderm. So what happened next? So there are in the bilaminar disc there is two space. Dorsal is the amniotic cavity and the lower ventral is the exocoelomic cavity or the primary yolk sac. And this is the chorionic cavity appears in between the cytotrophoblast and the exocoelomic membrane. So what happened next? Now the exocoelomic cavity, which is larger in size, the most portion of the exocoelomic cavity which will punched off, and it becomes the primary yolk sac, which becomes now the secondary yolk sac. So let's see here. The outer is the cytotrophoblast. So this is the cytotrophoblast, or this is known as the chorion. In future it develops into chorion. This is the cytotrophoblast. Or the chorion. And inner to the cytotrophoblast, this is the embryonic disc. This is the amniotic. This is the amniotic cavity, and lower to amniotic cavity, this is the exocoelomic cavity. A larger portion of the exocoelomic cavity which punched up and disappears. So this is the exocoelomic cavity. So more portion or the larger portion of the exocoelomic cavity which punched up and which reduced into smaller size. So what happened next? So this is the trophoblast cells or the chorion. This is the trophoblast or the chorion. After the pinching of the exocoelomic cavity, this is the bilaminar disc having the epiblast, and the below after the punching off which reduced into smaller size. This is the hypoblast. This is the bilaminar disc. So now this is known as the secondary yolk sac. After the pinching of exocoelomic cavity, the primary yolk sac, now it is known as the secondary yolk sac. This is known as the secondary yolk sac. Here a stalk is appeared or connect the bilaminar disc. This is the bilaminar disc to the trophoblast cell. This is the trophoblast cells or cytotrophoblast, or it also known as chorion. It is actually cytotrophoblast, but somehow it is known as the trophoblast. So a connection is formed by the mesodermal cell, extraembryonic mesodermal cells, and these stalk which connect the bilaminar disc to the trophoblast or the cytotrophoblast, and this is known as the connective stalk. This is known as connective stalk. This is known as connective stalk. This connective stalk in future which will develop into umbilical cord. Umbilical cord. So what will happen in next? So this is the cytotrophoblast. So this is the cytotrophoblast or the chorion. This is the cytotrophoblast or the chorion. So this is the cytotrophoblast or the chorion. Then inner, this is the bilaminar disc. This is the amniotic cavity, and this is the epiblast. And lower to the amniotic cavity, the another cavity, this is known as the secondary yolk sac, and this is the hypoblast cell which form the bilaminar disc. This is the secondary yolk sac, and this is the amniotic cavity. Now another cavities appeared inside the chorionic cavity. So such chorionic cavity, by the dissolving of extraembryonic mesodermal cell. So by the dissolving of extraembryonic mesodermal cells, a cavity is appeared into the chorionic cavity, and this space is known as extraembryonic coelom, or the space is known as the extraembryonic coelom. This is the additional coelom, not taking part at the time of formation of coelom of embryo. This is not the part of the coelom of embryo. The embryo actually developed from this bilaminar disc. This extra or the additional coelom does not taking part the coelom of the embryo. That's why it is known as the extracoelomic membrane. So as I told that this is the region, or this is the chorionic cavity which is filled with the extraembryonic mesoderm. So this is the extraembryonic mesoderm. This extraembryonic mesoderm, the cells of extraembryonic mesoderm, which also form the connective link, or which forms the stalk-like structure in between the bilaminar disc with the outer trophoblast, known as the connective stalk, also known as the allantois stalk. This is the future umbilical cord. And space is appeared by the dissolving of the cells of extraembryonic mesoderm, and the space is known as the extraembryonic coelom. And these are the mesodermal cells. These are the mesodermal cells present throughout the coelom. This coelom, it grows and meet to each other and form a single cavity. After the formation of extraembryonic coelom, what happened next? The extraembryonic coelom, it is very smaller at the beginning, but gradually it grow in size, and both the ends meet to each other and it forms a larger coelom. This extraembryonic coelom, it also known as exocoelom. This is also known as exocoelom. And such exocoelom, or the extraembryonic coelom, which appears and which separate the cytotrophoblast and the exoembryonic membrane. Exoembryonic embryonic membrane. So what happened? I am making the figure. This is the cytotrophoblast. So this is the cytotrophoblast or the chorion. This is the cytotrophoblast, or you can say this is the chorion. Suppose that this is the outer, which is known as the cytotrophoblast, and the bilaminar disc inner to the cytotrophoblast. This is the bilaminar disc. This is the green color. This is the epiblast disc, and below the epiblast disc, this is the hypoblast disc. So this is the hypoblast disc, and the exocoelom. Now exocoelom, it becomes larger in size. So this is the exocoelom. It becomes larger cavity in between outer trophoblast and inner the exocoelomic membrane. So what happened? This is the extra embryonic mesoderm, a layer of extra embryonic mesoderm now present inner side of the cytotrophoblast. So the inner side of cytotrophoblast. So this is the cytotrophoblast, or this is the chorion. This is the future chorion, the cytotrophoblast, and inner to the cytotrophoblast, this is the layer of mesoderm. This is the layer of mesoderm, and this is the extra embryonic mesoderm. And the layer of mesoderm, a layer of extra embryonic mesoderm, also surround around the exocoelomic membrane. So this is the red color. This is the exocoelomic membrane, and the cavity is the secondary yolk sac, and this is the amniotic cavity. So the secondary yolk sac, which is surrounded at outer region by a layer of extra embryonic mesoderm. So this is the mesoderm, and the outside of the embryonic cavity also, this is the mesoderm. Now the outer, now this structure is formed, and this is known as the coelom, exocoelom. This is the exocoelom, or this is known as the extra embryonic coelom. This is the extra embryonic coelom. It is the additional coelom. It is not the coelom of the embryo. It is the additional coelom present outside of the embryo, and that's why it is known as the extra embryonic coelom. The bilaminar disc is present here, and this is the embryo proper present here. The membrane, the outer which is made up of the cytotrophoblast. This is the ectoderm. Actually, this is the ectoderm, and inner is the mesoderm. And this type of arrangement, which is known as the somatopleuric membrane. So this type of arrangement, or the layer, is known as the somatopleuric membrane. This is the somatopleuric membrane. Here the outer is ectoderm, inner is mesoderm. But in case of the layer of this layer here, the yolk sac layer here, the outer is mesoderm, inner it is known as the endoderm. Inner is endoderm. This endoderm formed by the division of hypoblast cell. So this is the endoderm. And this type of arrangement, which is known as the splanchnopleuric, this is known as the splanchnopleuric extraembryonic membrane. So these are the extraembryonic membrane. It is also a extraembryonic membrane. Somatopleuric, this is also extraembryonic membrane. So in case of this is the amniotic cavity and this is the amnion, this is the membrane of amnion membrane. Here the green colored cell, these cell actually, these are originated by the division of cytotrophoblast. So that's why it is ectoderm. This is the ectodermal cell. So this is ectoderm, inner is ectoderm, outer is mesoderm. After the formation of these cavities, amniotic cavity, the secondary yolk sac and the extraembryonic coelom, as well as these membranes, now the elongation of embryo taking place. After the formation of all membranes, all cavities, the elongation of embryo is taking place. Embryo is elongated in the axis of anterior and posterior axis. So anteroposteriorly the embryo start to elongate, and now the embryo becomes a cylinder-like structure, and which is known as the embryo cylinder. So this is the embryo proper. It elongates anteroposteriorly and it bends like this. So the elongation, bending and folding of embryo proper taking place at the time of development. So what happened? There is the appearance of primitive gut. Suppose that this is the primitive gut. And here this primitive gut, this is the secondary yolk sac. Now it becomes the yolk sac proper. Now it becomes the yolk sac proper, and which is connected with the primitive gut of the embryo. And the another sac-like, rudimentary sac-like structure is appeared, and this is known as the allantois. So this is the yolk sac and this is allantois. Both these two sac structure connected with the primitive gut of the embryo proper at the time of development. So this is the embryo proper. This is the embryo proper. This embryo, which is surrounded by, now it is protected or surrounded by the amniotic cavity. At the time of elongation, the amniotic cavity also elongated, and which surround totally the embryo proper. Suppose that this is the amniotic. Suppose that this is the amniotic cavity. This is the amniotic. Suppose that this is the amniotic cavity. This is the amniotic cavity here. And outer of the amniotic cavity, this is the mesodermal lining of the cells. And outer to the amniotic cavity and these vesicles, there is the extraembryonic coelom. So this is the extraembryonic coelom is there. So suppose that outer to the coelom is known as the extraembryonic coelom. Suppose that this is the extraembryonic coelom. And outer to the extraembryonic coelom, there is the line of the mesodermal, and the layer is the cytotrophoblast or the chorion. So this is the cytotrophoblast or chorion, and some place it forms the finger-like projection-like structure which enter into the endometrium of the uterus, and this is known as the chorion villi. So these are the chorion villi. So these are the chorionic villi. These are the chorionic villi. Villus is singular. So now this is the extraembryonic coelom is there. This is the extraembryonic coelom. This is the coelom. What are the arrangement of different mesodermal cells? So the lining of chorionic villi, anteriorly chorion is lined by the mesodermal cells. So these are the mesodermal cells lining. This is the chorionic membrane. This is the chorionic membrane. This is the outer chorionic membrane. The chorionic membrane, outer is the ectoderm, inner is the mesoderm, and the amniotic cavity. The outer line, I made draw like this. The outer line, which is also the mesodermal lining. This is the lining of mesoderm, and inner is the ectoderm. And around the yolk sac, the outer is the mesoderm, inner is the endoderm, and around the allantois, the outer is the mesoderm and inner is the allantois, inner is the endoderm. So these are the four extra embryonic membranes. This is the chorion, which take part in the formation of placenta. This is the chorion through which the embryo which get nutrition from the mother body and it exit the waste matter through such placenta, through such chorion. And this is the coelom. This is the amniotic cavity. The amniotic cavity, it is filled with the fluid is known as the amniotic fluid. This is known as the amniotic fluid. Such amniotic fluid, it is secreted by both the amniotic membrane. This is the amniotic membrane, as well as it is secreted by the embryo. This is the amniotic fluid is filled inside the amniotic cavity, and such amniotic fluid which is secreted from the amniotic membrane as well as the embryo. This fluid which prevent the drying of the embryo. So it provides the aqueous medium for the embryo. And such amniotic fluid which help for the movement of the embryo. Such amniotic fluid which also prevent the embryo from the bacterial infection, and this fluid which surround the embryo, that's why it maintain the pressure as well as the temperature, and such fluid also act as the shock absorber. So it means this fluid which provide the protection to the developing embryo as well as the movement of the embryo. So this is very important for the embryo. And this is the yolk sac and this is the allantois. Yolk sac, actually it is rudimentary in case of human. There is no yolk here, but it is named as the yolk sac. But somehow it is believed that this yolk sac, it has the main role for the formation of blood cells till the functioning of the liver. Allantois, it helps for the production of blood vessels for the placenta. With this, the formation of extraembryonic membrane in human is over. If you like, then click my another video regarding the placenta and their types. Thank you for watching.